guys, welcome to Ocean One channel. I want to do a quick follow-up to the news that we got earlier today about 4 OEM manufacturers possibly in being interested in purchasing Fisker, and just kind of want to walk you through some scenarios there, how that might play out, might not play out. We always have to look at both sides. But before we get too deep into that, let's go over the YouTube disclaimers. None of my content constitutes professional advice. Viewers that follow any advice, suggestions, content from this channel do so at their own risk because you are responsible for your own actions. All right, let's talk this over. Okay, let's get a few things out of the way here. While this news is clearly positive, that we have 4 OEMs interested in Fisker, that is 100% positive news, and as any Fisker investor would want, we would want, people to want to purchase Fisker, right? But before we get too deep into that, we have to ask ourselves a few questions. What if that doesn't pan out? Well, if that doesn't pan out, then of course Fisker's on a one-way street toward bankruptcy. And as I've mentioned in my other videos, that's going to be either Chapter 7, which is total liquidation, it's totally over, or Chapter 11, where the company tries to restructure, and it's anybody's guess how that plays out. That could play out 1,001 different ways, but how is it going to play out? None of us know, Now, I'm hoping for a miracle, and Fisker clearly needs one, because if we don't get a buyer, then that's where we're going to be. We're going to be in Chapter 7, or we're going to be in Chapter 11. But who would be the most likely potential buyer at this point? So before we get into who I think is the most likely to purchase Fisker, assuming we were to get purchased, okay? This is just interest right now. This is just people testing the waters. Doesn't mean a thing until it happens. Chapter 7 we don't want because it's totally over. Fisker does not survive through a Chapter 7. Chapter 11, Fisker may indeed survive in some fashion. It just may come out of the wash totally different. The most likely scenario for shareholders is that they do not survive a Chapter 11. Typically, Chapter 11, okay, there's always exceptions. Typically, Chapter 11 shareholders do not survive. Those shares get just poof, they're gone, and new shares get issued assuming the company comes out of Chapter 11. So we need to get those two out of the way. So now let's talk about who would be the most likely to purchase Fisker. I think the most likely entity to purchase Fisker, assuming Fisker gets purchased, would have to be Nissan. Now, why would I think that? I think that simply because Nissan seemed to hang around the longest. It wasn't that long ago that we were all speculating, including myself, that Nissan would be the person that we merged with and, or come in as a backer, give us money, okay, things like that. And that didn't pan out. Nissan simply stepped away from the deal. So they seem to be the most likely company to step in here and take another look at Fisker. Now, who else could it be? We could name anybody. Anybody. Tesla, Toyota, Honda, Mazda. You just start naming the list. Kia, Hyundai. You could just go on and on. Name any automotive manufacturer out there, and they could potentially be interested in Fisker. They could look and say, hey, look at all this work that Fisker has done. Yes, they've had problems, but they have a product on the road. They have Magna that's already set up. They have suppliers that are already set up. So they could come in, anybody could come in and say, I can turn this company around. Now, what we have to ask ourselves is this: even if we get a buyer, do shareholders come out okay? Typically in a buyout, the share price goes up. Typically. There's always exceptions. But typically, we're trading at what? As I'm making this video, heck, I don't even remember. Maybe 6 cents. Okay, I'm doing this after hours, of course. The day is ended. The trading has ended. I think we might be up around 6 cents. I don't know. I don't really pay that much attention to it at these levels because in the grand scheme of things, you know, we're either going to fail miserably or we're going to succeed over time. I don't expect us to exceed, you know, exceedingly quick, if that makes any sense. But if, let's just pretend, let's just work with Nissan. If Nissan were to come in and offer X amount of dollars for the company, does Fisker accept it? Probably Fisker's in a position now to where they're probably going to accept just about anything that is thrown at them to save face. Now, I'm doing a lot of speculating here, okay? There's a lot of wheels in motion. This could play out any direction that you just want to take at it. You know, talks could collapse, and the next thing we know, we're Chapter 7 or Chapter 11. But I think what most people would be most interested in this video is how do shareholders come out in a purchase? It simply depends on the money. How much money, and I'm just going to stick with Nissan here, okay? I am not saying Nissan is a buyer. I am not saying we're going to get bought. I am simply running through a scenario with Nissan, and I'm just going to use them. All right, so play along. So Nissan comes in, and they offer the company $2 billion. Now, I looked at the 10K, and if my memory's right, Fisker's running right around $1.8 billion in change, a lot of change, in liabilities. So to purchase Fisker with, let's just say, $2 billion, that money would have to go to satisfy all of the debts first, all of our obligations first, and then anything that was left over would go to the shareholders. So, you know, you can do the math on that. The problem with Fisker right now is with the shareholders is you have to go back and understand what happened with the notes. It wasn't long ago that Fisker only had roughly 350, 360 million shares. And then we missed the 10Q. And I did several videos over that. I felt like we were getting artificially suppressed because the note holder could buy shares at a discount, turn around and sell them, buy shares at a discount, turn around and sell them. And the next thing you know, here we are with, I think we have roughly about 1.3 billion shares right now, I think. So if you do that, and let's just say Nissan comes in, you know, and offers $2 billion and it's accepted, then what's left over for the shareholders? Not much. Now, Fisker comes in and offers $3 billion. You know, let's just pretend there's a bidding war and Nissan offers $3 billion and that's accepted. Then, you know, that leaves quite a bit of money left over for the shareholders, and the shareholders would come out pretty good. And you might be thinking, well, doesn't this have to get voted on? Well, in a buyout, yes. Now, if we go Chapter 7 or Chapter 11, forget it. We ain't voting on nothing, okay? We have no say-so. The problem is, though, if the shareholders get to vote on it, their vote really doesn't count. Not at the end of the day, okay? Because Henrik and Gita have so many Class B shares. I think they both own roughly, I think it's like 68 million apiece. You take those, you multiply them by 10, and really there's simply no way to outvote, not realistically, there's simply no way to outvote Henrik and Gita. So whatever the board decides and whatever they decide would leave shareholders at their mercy. So you would just, the best case scenario here would be that something is left over for the shareholders. And I think we have to prepare ourselves just in case. You know, we already need a miracle. So just because we're getting offers from buyers does not mean this is going to play out in our favor. So, you know, we just have to accept that if we get buyers lined up, that somebody wants Fisker a little more than the next buyer and a little more than the next buyer. And you have to assume and you have to hope that they are serious buyers. And if they are, then shareholders may potentially come out of this. Now, let's just assume for just a moment that shareholders get squat. Nothing. It's over for shareholders. What would I like to see next? Well, first of all, I would like to see shareholders get something, okay? Because financially, I've been decimated here, and I would like to see us get something out of that. But if we don't, what I would like to see is, I would like to see Fisker survive. I would like to see the oceans get serviced, and life goes on for Fisker Ocean holders. I would like to see whoever purchases Fisker, that they can employ those people that were laid off at Magna. They go back to work. They start building Oceans, and Oceans continue. It's a great vehicle. I would love to see this company live to fight another day. Well, if they're, how should I word that? I guess if they're getting bought out, they're not living to fight another day. They're just living, okay? I just want to see this company survive. Maybe that's the way that I should word that. Survive. So I think that should be our hope as Fisker investors, that Fisker simply survives. Of course, I want to see the shareholders do well, and I would very much like to see that come about. And we just going to have to wait and see how this plays out. It may play out very well, and it may play out horribly wrong. So how much time do we have? It's anybody's guess. But now we know in the 10K that Fisker, about what, a week ago, was looking at roughly 30 days. Do they go the full 30 days? Do we get a buyer? Do we transition into Chapter 7 or Chapter 11? It's a chicken and the egg here. So we're just going to have to see how it plays out. So I just wanted to go over this, wanted to go over my thoughts, how this could potentially go out. The main thing with the buyout here is that with a buyer, we are last in line, okay? Understand that. Even with a buyout, shareholders are last in line. So it would just depend on what the offer was. If the offer was enough, of course, shareholders get some money. And if not, shareholders are last in line, so they get left out in the cold. All right, guys, I hope you found this helpful. Hope you found it beneficial. And if you're liking my content, just hit the like button and maybe subscribe. And hopefully this YouTube channel can stay around for a long time. And it may not. We'll just have to see how it plays out. All right, guys, thanks a lot. And until next time.